How's it going, everybody? Dieter and Hutch talking to you on a what the hell day of the week is this, Jake? Is it Wednesday? Are we on a
I
Wednesday?
actually, before you said that, I had zero idea. It's a Wednesday, apparently.
Um, cool.
We're here.
John,
We're live.
John Lynch spoke at the combine. What a time to be alive. Kyle Shanahan didn't make it. That was a strange point of contention for many. That Kyle
Yeah.
Shanahan, who has never gone to the combine,
I think he went like once or maybe twice early in his career with the Niners, like maybe the first one in that cycle, and then he sort of realized, oh, this is a waste of my time and
what am I going to do?
everyone's time. So, we'll have our scouts go, we'll have our lead personnel go. Some coaches can go, maybe some
Right.
position coaches who want to talk to players at those positions. But he's like, I'm not going to waste my time with that.
I'm with you. I mean, listen, I get why people who go out there from the media think it's important. I'm not disagreeing that there's a tremendous amount of importance. You know what's really important out of it? Dem numbers, which you're going to get whether you're there or not. So I had no problem with it. And John Lynch has to go. He is, of course, head of personnel for this football
Correct.
team. You should probably talk to some people, see some people, talk some trades, all that jazz. We'll get into some of the trade stuff here in a second. Interesting comments on Deebo Samuel. I got a
Yeah.
take for you on that. But let's start with kind of the most interesting thing that was said in a generally uninteresting presser today, which
Correct.
is John said that there's no guarantees they get a deal done with Brock Purdy. And it was somewhat flippant. And that is a factual statement, much in the same way that there's no guarantee tomorrow arrives for any of us to go full
Right.
Kyle on you. But I did think it was interesting that he sort of dropped that in there after saying, "Yeah, we're negotiating. No guarantees anything gets done." What? A bit of a
Right.
jarring notation.
It's both nothing and also you didn't have to say that part of it. And
Right.
maybe that's just part of negotiating, and you just say, well, there's no guarantee we get a deal done, but it's like, I mean, are you saying that you think you might not get a deal done, or are you just saying that for the sake of posturing? Point is, like, it wasn't even on my radar that they could possibly not get a deal done. It didn't even really seem like a possibility. So I guess it's of note in the sense that, like, he's saying it is a possibility. I don't think that's how this goes, and I think it would be pretty wild if that's how they operated. But he said it's possible, so
And it is. It is. The 49ers do not, in fact, have to do anything. It is prudent for them to do something. And I do think they are and will do something. I see no reason to believe that this thing doesn't get done. But we are coming up on a bit of a timeline here. I think you and I are both in agreement that if you're going to do this thing, get it done before free agency, have the cost certainty in place. It's not to say that you can't do it afterwards. It's just to say everyone's life is easier if you do have it in place, and free agency starts in 2 weeks. So I would have liked to have gotten the impression, and listen, John Lynch has no responsibility to be totally forthright in these things, and he's pretty
right.
cagey about stuff like this. But I would have liked to have gotten the impression, either in from Lynch or externally, that there's more tread on these tires, that they're a little bit further down the line. I'm not getting that impression right now.
There have been times where he's given more like, yeah, it's talks are, they're going like we're having, active discussions. I won't say which way it'll go, but there's some times where you get more of an optimistic tinge, and that's not to say it was negative, because he did say,
No,
when
yeah,
both sides are motivated, blah blah blah. And again, we're reading into comments where he has to publicly state,
right.
the nature of contract talks, which he's not going to do. That said, he did say they might not get a deal done.
Yeah,
I don't think any of us, I don't know about you, but I certainly don't think that's how this is going to go. But he didn't say, yeah, we're nailing it down. It's close.
I am. I'm a little less optimistic that everything's a-okay today than I was yesterday. That's where I'm at. That doesn't mean that we are now taking the money line of not going to get a deal done. It doesn't mean anything like that. It's just that is a seed of doubt that has been planted, and it could prove to be nothing. Not all seeds hatch, or it can prove to be something. And again, they have about 2 weeks here to really get this thing hammered out. to where they then can go into free agency understanding very, very astutely how much money they have, specifically how much money they have. The salary cap has gone up even more than the most optimistic projections. In fact, the lowest possible salary cap number that was thrown out by Dan Graziano about a week ago, 277, is $2 million more than the most optimistic projection prior to that report. So, which is the same thing that happened last year with the cap. And the Niners, the Jaguars, the Eagles, right? Those are the teams that play all the void money year games most. They're best situated for it.
Yeah.
The Niners are in a great position to attack what is, a bull market for the NFL.
Well, what's really interesting to me, I honestly found the most interesting comments when like somebody asked, what's the health update on Ayuk, and also our teams are interested in him.
That
Is there
was
any
interesting.
interest? And so he didn't give any health update on Ayuk. He later told reporters that, he's got an important checkup coming up and that there will be an update soon. But he goes, yeah, that typically happens with really good players. I remember 2 years ago having similar conversations. You get calls and you always listen to calls.
Maybe
and then
last
like
year
almost, and then almost a total non sequitur goes, so since Kyle and I have been here, we've been a top 5 spending team. And then he goes, so at some point, you have to reset a little bit, or at least recalibrate. You can't just keep pressing the pedal. And I think there's some good that could come out of that. We need to get younger. I think we're the oldest team in football, trying to make a run at that deal last year. I think it's good to get constantly younger. Yada, 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 got a bunch of picks to work with. But like he's asked about Ayuk's health and trading Ayuk, and he goes, yeah, we might have to reset. And you're like, well, that wasn't the question. And also interesting for him to put that out there sort of unprompted.
In the moment, listening back to it, and we got to give shouts to David Lombardi for just posting the whole damn thing. Shouts to him.
Sicko.
that is some deep sicko energy. Here's 17 unabated minutes of John Lynch. We would have gotten it anyway, but like
right, not from the 49ers, not from the 49ers.
But they don't want this information out there. Heaven forbid their fans be engaged with a major NFL touch point of the season. Regardless, in the moment, it did not perk up my ears. In text, it kind of took me back a little bit, what you just read off. Like, hey, you guys, getting some calls on Ayuk. Yeah, we get calls on good players. We listen to calls on good players. Also, we might need to get younger. And we might need to mix things up. And it's like, well, first off, Brandon Ayuk is in no way an impediment to getting younger. Right? What really struck me about those comments, and we can get back into the Purdy thing a little bit later, but like what really struck me about those comments was it was almost as if hinting, hey, we can trade guys for draft picks. We're trying to trade guys for draft picks. We want more draft picks, because he kept mentioning how many draft picks they had. And it's like, yeah, the draft is great. And maybe that was him just doing a little bit of promotional work for the combine and the draft process and all that jazz. But you could very well read into it as if someone wants to throw us a first for Brandon Ayuk, we are not opposed to it at all. And that, by the way, it tracks with Tim Kawakami's recent reporting, with a sense that has been kind of hanging over everything since, this time last year, which is there was not a conviction inside the building that they should give Brandon Ayuk the contract that they gave him. And in fact, they were ready to not do it until Kyle freaked out at the last second, as he has done now a few times, and said, just give him the money. I just want this over with. And basically folded.
I listen, I don't think the contract was undeserved at all. I think the way it went down made it so that you can't give him that deal. And he's saying, Kawakami's reporting, as is understandable, like there's a lot of people that are like, you can't give in at that stage. And the 49ers do have this obsession with winning deals, and they've gotten smacked around with a few. And I wonder
they
if
are
there's
not winning deals.
And I wonder if there's like a whiplash with that a little bit, and they have a sense of like, well, the next one that comes up, we got to make sure we don't get raked over the coals, and Purdy's the next one, and
setting expectations.
I just wonder how much of that is a factor that probably shouldn't be.
Let's also be clear. They cannot trade Brandon Ayuk under any circumstances. No. The contract is fiscally impossible to move after 1 year.
As is
our friend
Samuels.
Debo Samuel. So John Lynch's comments today on Debo Samuel, pretty straightforward.
Directly after the Ayuk question,
Right.
by the way.
Debo's looking for a fresh start. We're going to honor it. Okay? That's the takeaway. Now, are they interested in someone trading for Debo Samuel? You bet your ass they are. They'd love to get something in return. They'd love to get anything in return. They'll take it. Now, then it gets into, okay, what's it worth to them to make that trade? The flip side is if you thought that they weren't going to cut him on a post June 1 designation, and I'll raise my hand here. I was the first person who said, what's in it for them in that? Because you're still taking a $10 million hit on the cap. You only have to pay him $5 million more than you're going to pay one way or another.
Yeah, but it's more than that, though. It's more than that with his $15 million option bonus that comes into play.
Yeah.
And so, like, the reality is, like, Lynch pointed to the reality. He all but said they're going to post June 1 him. Like, he's like, listen, we're going to honor it. We're on good terms with Debo. Like, he asked for a fresh start. I love him. He makes game-changing plays. But, time happens. He asked for that. We don't always with contracts, but, probably makes sense. So we're at least allowing him to look and having conversations. We'll see where that goes, which is to say it's not going to go anywhere because they're going to eat $31 million if they trade him, unless they do it like post June 1 and have to figure out if Debo would like decline his option bonus and why would he do that. It's just like
interest.
It goes back to what I thought was happening at the time of like, Debo's going to hit the market. This allows him to see what his market is. And so that when they do post June 1 him, he knows where he's going. Yeah. And I think that's how this sets up, where Lynch is like not quite saying it because wants to leave open the door for a trade, but they're going to post June 1 him. And I would be really shocked if that's not how it goes.
Both spots now moved with the post June 1. Javon Hargrave and Debo Samuel will be post June 1, which, congrats to Kyle Juszczyk. You might just get cut at a random time now. Who's to say? Here was my takeaway on the Debo thing, because it's nothing new, but it is clarifying. It stood out to me, though, that you're right. It is a bit more complex, but like John Lynch on the record, we're not in the business of giving away good players. This would be a situation where they would be giving away a good player. Now, the fiscal upside of it is such, and it's been explained and all that. But it strikes me as fascinating that Lynch, and this is his framing, put it on Debo. That this is Debo's call, and that they are going to do right by Debo because Debo, at least on the field over his career, has done so right by them. That they're not going to fight him on this. They're going to do what's right for the player, because he's earned that respect. Right. But this is his call. This is going to, I hope we get aggregated. I'm just going to come. That's Debo quitting. The going got tough for Debo Samuel this year, and he decided to quit. Didn't quit in the season per se, but he looked at the situation and said, I'm not going to be Kyle Shanahan's number one anymore. I'm out. Get rid of me. I'm under contract. I just restructured, but I don't want to be here anymore. That's some grade A diva nonsense. I don't want to be here and get rid of me. Now, the 49ers could have come to the same conclusion on their own. And frankly, that might be the case, and Lynch is just pushing it away. But that's not the sense that I've gotten throughout this process, talking to some people. It seems as if Debo Samuel has looked at this situation and said, I don't want to be a 49er anymore. And it's like, dude, the first whiff of adversity that you have in your career, you say you want out. The first sense of, I'm not the number one guy anymore, you want to get out. And let's not forget that this comes on the heels of him publicly complaining about not getting enough touches.
Even though he got 3 or 4 fewer than last year, basically the same amount, more in the run game, slightly less in the pass game.
Exactly. He was getting the same amount of touches, and he should not have been getting close to that amount of touches. No. And then you get Kyle folding, again, there's that term, in the next game against the Rams, just saying, I guess we'll force feed Debo to prove a point, or I don't know. It is unbecoming for a once great player to go out this way. It is it would have been one thing if you just say he had pneumonia and all these things, and it kind of deteriorated from there, and both sides saw the writing on the wall, and they amicably separated. And I don't think this won't be amicable, but you just say, hey, time comes for everybody. 28 years old, plays like a running back. That's when it usually falls off. Let's make something happen here. For Debo to do the same thing that he did in a way before he got this big contract, at the back end of it, man, you can't say that it was a bad deal. But when people tell you who they are,
certainly they certainly didn't get the best years of him on that contract.
Yeah,
and it's something where I won't necessarily say that Debo quit, but like he doesn't want to be here. Like the thing is, Debo is clearly viewing this, and I see him as someone who, understandably, the NFL is a brutal sport, but like he particularly is like, I want to get paid, and he's probably thinking,
he should have paid.
Again, right, I'm not the number one. I'm not even close to the number one. You look at this offense, and if they have all their pieces back, goes McCaffrey, number one. Mm-hmm. You got Kittle. Ayuk's above him at this point. Jawan Jennings might honestly be above him. Ricky Pearsall's in there too. Like, there's a lot of mouths to feed, and all of those guys are better receivers than him at this point in his career, and that's not even debatable. Like, if you just watch the tape, like, Debo can produce against zone. He cannot beat man. That is a very clear reality of his game, and I think him viewing, like, where do I fit in all this? He's saying, all right, let me just, last season I have a sour taste in my mouth. Let's clean the slate. So I get it, but you're right. It's like not – it's like for someone who had such an incredible legacy with the 49ers, it's not a really – at least
it's an ugly exit.
Few-year stretch. Yeah,
it's an ugly exit. Sorry, my sour face wasn't about your statement. He absolutely – I think number 19 should be retired. It won't be because they have way too high of standards and stuff, but like it is – when he was on, he was as spectacular and engaging as any football player I've had the privilege of watching.
He had me writing columns that were like waxing poetic about the beauty of football.
The beauty of football.
Finding God through Debo Samuel's play on the field. Like, that's how good he was.
But he also had me at the end of that yelling on KMBR about how you don't give money to crazy people, and he was acting crazy. And now, here it is. He gets, again, just a dose of humility sent his way, and he's like, nah, I'm taking my ball and leaving. And I want to shout out Griffin in the comments saying he's making business decisions. I'm sure that's how Debo Samuel and Tory Dandy, his agent, are viewing this. But on what planet is he going to get more money from a different team? Who's going to give Debo Samuel? You're going to post June 1 him, okay? So now he is a free agent. Anyone can go and sign him. Who is going to give Debo Samuel the money that the 49ers were on the hook for giving him, right? And again, this is where it comes down to. I'm pretty sure the Niners would have come to the exact same conclusion on their own, in that Debo Samuel's not our number one. He's probably not our number two. He might not even be our number three anymore. We have to pay him this bonus. We have to pay him this salary. Let's post June 1 cut him.
This is a really good question. Like what contract? Like, what is he actually going to get on the open market? I'm very curious.
$9 to $10 million for a year.
I think it's going to be like 5 plus a lot of incentives.
Sure.
Like Odell kind of got that, and he was coming back from knee injuries, and he's like a proper receiver. But like Debo, after low production, might be like 5 to maybe 8 with incentives. But like
it's definitely a prove it deal coming off of that season.
No question.
And I mean, they might say, oh, it's a 2 or it's a 3, but it's a 1. No one's giving him any guarantees that keep him on a roster for more than a year. So, sorry, and Griffin does say in the comments that he was speaking about how Debo played last year was more about business decisions. I'm not sure I saw it the same way, but at this point, the man's out the door, so we can say whatever we want. At this point, anything goes. I just... It is an unbecoming end for a great 49er, and I guess we should have seen it coming.
I mean, we kind of
this way.
Yeah. I guess we didn't see it coming exactly this way. It wasn't a massive surprise, but it is
that he exits. No, but in the way that he's kind of stomping about it, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I
he
think that's right.
hasn't. Yeah, I mean, he hasn't done anything on social media. And listen, I'll give Debo credit for other stuff. Like again, one thing he didn't get credit for is he was like lining up Ricky Pearsall and other young
Yeah.
wide receivers this season when they were in the wrong spot.
Hmm.
And like that was, I saw that, and no one really noted it, but he did that. And again, his production was poor. We talked about his game, but like there are other things to him. And I don't think Debo's a bad guy, but I do think like he's a little bit too oriented right now, and what the business decision is, and I get it, because that's you're in the NFL, you're trying to provide for your family, you get a pretty short
Well,
career,
okay.
especially when the wheels fall off, and it can be quick.
I got to say about the whole providing for the family
Yeah.
thing. Like, there is a certain point in the NFL where it is absolutely about providing for the family. I'm not disputing that at all. You have a very short window to make as much money as you can. I'm not going to, and a lot of people say this, check the track record. I'm never going to go in on anybody understanding that their window to make 9 figures is exceptionally limited. And clearly, Debo Samuel does not have a future in this here space of podcasting. So I get where he's coming from in that, but like he has already made a tremendous amount of money.
Yeah.
At this point, yes, he might be thinking, I need to go get that other deal. That is having a bad. That's on Tory Dandy for not telling him like there is no big deal coming on the other side of this. And you don't need to test the marketplace prior to being cut to understand that there is no market. The fact that there weren't 15 teams beating down the door to trade for Debo Samuel tells you exactly how much he's going to get on the back end of this thing. And again, none of this, as you aptly noted, none of this should come as a surprise. Like this was all laid out perfectly. So Debo should have just let the 49ers do it and kind of exited with his head held high, because after what he put on the field, save for this past year, that would have been the right way to go about it. I think this leaves a sour taste in my mouth. Maybe I'm standing alone on that, but I think that this will taint what should be a
It's
pretty
not an
outstanding
ideal way for
legacy.
it to end 2 trade requests, in your tenure. And
Yeah.
the 49ers saying, well, financially we can't trade you and no one's offering anything near enough, but we'll pretend we're going to look at trades and then post June 1.
It's the dog and pony show of it all that I'm sick of, right? Like, why are they going? I understand. I guess maybe I do know. Maybe I'm just bemoaning the nature of it all. But like, he deserves deference and reverence and all these things. You can handle this with class. And I'm not saying that Debo hasn't handled this exit with class. He's taking it upon himself. That's his prerogative. It won't be viewed upon well, but like, yeah, you got to appreciate the initiative of it all. But why are we pretending as if when they looked at the Javon Hargrave situation, they said we're cutting him post June 1.
Yeah.
And when they talk about Debo Samuel, it's like, we would never get rid of Debo Samuel unless someone wants to talk to us about trading him. Oh, well, we'll get to that later. And then it's like, you're just going to post June 1 him. Just say, we are looking to trade Debo Samuel. Then when no one trades for him, say, we are looking to cut Debo Samuel. Just call it like it is. Why are we tiptoeing around reality?
I think it's just that they like each other and they have a built-up relationship, and that he's Kyle Shanahan's favorite player. And so,
Debo doesn't like the 49ers anymore. He broke up with them.
Yeah, but like it doesn't do them any benefit to like trash on Debo out the door. And
not saying trash him.
I'm
just saying don't do the we're still together.
Yeah,
we're just on a break thing.
Yeah, but that's just for us. That's because we don't like it. They're gonna go a different route. Like that's not how it works.
Okay. All of my bullshitting and bloviation aside, he's done. Debo Samuel's on a different team next year, and it ain't going to be because a 5th-round pick is coming the other way. They're cutting him with a post-June 1 designation. Debo Samuel, hope he tested the market well these last couple of weeks, because he's about to hit the market in the next couple of days. There's a couple of other notes that we want to get to off of the Lynch thing. Let's start with the big news yesterday. The Niners sent out a list of their new coaches. A lot of them we knew, some of them we didn't. Most of them don't matter in the grander scheme of things. one that was interesting and one that had some people kind of losing their minds there for a second. And luckily, we have great reporters covering the team. And I think anyone who has been around the Niners or talking about the Niners knew that this was a legit possibility. Brian Griese out as quarterbacks coach with Lombardi.
Not fired.
Not fired. That is the thing to note. Brian Griese, who it was always a level of tentativeness every offseason on if he would like stay in the job. A guy who turned down an interview to be the head coach of the Jets. Not that he would have gotten the job, but turned down the interview. Denied the University of Michigan a chance to talk to him about some jobs.
No one really had a negative thing to say about him. It was all
people were trying to give him jobs.
Yeah.
People were trying to give him other jobs. The 49ers would have kept him around forever. He's just like, I don't want to be in the grind of this anymore. More power to him.
Let me just say, so like, Lynch said it. Basically, he said he would give the 49ers 3 years, and he did. And then came back and was like, all right, family decision. I'm out. I'm done. And I got to say, there's really, I think, in a broader sense outside of football, like that's a pretty honorable, not amicable is the word, but like pretty impressive decision. Like I just think in general,
man of principled.
The fact that he says, all right, I could have all these jobs that are incredible and grind up the ranks. Like not enough people say, I don't know. We don't live that long. Let me hang out with my family. I've got a pretty good life. I made enough money. Instead of like putting myself through this, I'm actually going to enjoy time with my family and whatever it is. And I'm sure he's not done working and, he'll get the appetite back for it again. But there is really something to be said for treating life that way. And yes. I think it's not amicable. Admirable is the word I was going for. My vocabulary is...
We're all fried, baby. Don't worry about
That's
it. Right. It's the John Goodman scene. Listen, there's a lot of movies that I've only seen clips of thanks to like YouTube shorts. And it's the John Goodman fuck you money argument where it's like Brian Griese doesn't need the money. He doesn't seem to have the desire to like move up the ladder and become known as a incredible head coach, which by the way, like that seems healthy, right? A lot of people are just in for the prestige. The grind is everything that needs to an end.
He came in off of being an analyst because he was like, this seems fun, like a new challenge. I want to try this.
Let's give it a try. Why not? And so he can walk away from what seemed to be a pretty good job, right? I have no indication that anything behind the scenes was amiss, that he was pissed off that he didn't get named offensive coordinator.
Purdy loved him.
Well, everyone loved him because he's a pretty chill dude and he's good at his job. And so I didn't hear anything like, oh, well, they put Kubiak as the offensive coordinator and Brian wanted the job and so then he left. I didn't hear anything like that. So everything seemed fine. So a credit to him. If he wants to come back into the fold with the 49ers or any other team, someone's going to make a job for him. Someone's going to have an opportunity for him. Because he doesn't have the ambition, and I say this as a positive, to move up the ladder, he can work as much or as little as he wants. He doesn't need this. He does it because he wants that. That is, you want to talk about an admirable way to go about your day-to-day, like that's living. You're working because you want to.
Yeah, it gives you the air of being like, I'm playing hard to get. Like you gotta make me a sweet, interesting, cool offer that fits with my lifestyle. Like I'm not saying that's how he's approaching it, but it does set up a way where he's like, when I come back, if I come back to do whatever it is, like you got to convince me because I'm cool with where my life is at, and it's a pretty powerful position to have. I think one other thing I found interesting in Lynch's presser wasn't that surprising at all, but he did confirm Trent Williams is coming back and made a point to say that like Trent wouldn't come back if he wasn't confident and excited to play at like the standard he holds himself to. Again, that a lot of that's lip service, but it's still like Trent is definitely coming back at least for another year. He feels like he can play at an all-pro level. What else did you note from the presser? Otherwise, I found most of it was a little
It
mum.
was pretty milquetoast. It wasn't from the presser. I have found the coaching hire aspect of things interesting. So like Leonard Hankerson got like a slight promotion. I like Leonard Hankerson. I think he's a good coach. So I'm pro that. Gus Bradley, this is something that had been reported for weeks. He's officially in. I was a little bit Saleh's mentor, the man who built the Seattle Seahawks cover 3, like they're going to do it. If you ever had a doubt that this team was going to embrace the cover 3 in a way that Steve Wilkes and whatever the hell that brain trust was last year wouldn't do, they're doing it. They're coming back. They're going cover 3, which means maybe we need to focus a little bit on free safety so that Malik Mustafa can play a little bit more strong safety. Neither here nor there. This is more of a positing out there. So Gus Bradley's in. He takes over the you have a job, but no one really knows what it is role that had been previously held by Anthony Lynn.
You're a veteran guy who has experience.
You're just there. Yeah.
Come like give TED Talks once a week.
You're like an analyst for Alabama football in the Saban heyday. I was just surprised that Mike McCoy, and you might not remember Mike McCoy. Mike McCoy, long time, Broncos offensive coordinator, Cardinals offensive coordinator, head coach of the San Diego Chargers. I'm surprised that Mike McCoy wasn't given a job on this team because I was under the impression that if you were a fired Chargers head coach, you just got to show up in Santa Clara and work for a year or two, and no one would ever really know what you did. And with Brian Griese leaving, I thought for sure it was going to be McCoy coming in. He's a Novato guy. I just thought for sure it was going to be him to the Anthony Lynn Fellowship of Former Chargers Coaches post at 49-49. Here we go. I mean, so keep an eye out for Mike McCoy. He might just show up at some point because this is where former Chargers head coaches just end up. And in this case, I guess Gus Bradley takes that job for a year, even though he never coached the Chargers. Did Gus Bradley ever have an internship with the Chargers or anything like that? Because
we can find out. We can look into that. I'll do the research while you keep the people.
I don't have any official. I don't have anything beyond that. Let's do this. Let's do this.
No Chargers. No. Oh wait, no. I'm so sorry. Yeah, he was the Chargers DC in 2017 to 2020. What are we talking about?
That's right. Okay.
Do you forgive the 49ers now?
I forgive the 49ers.
God, I can't believe
the former Chargers coach, the Anthony Lynn honorary former Chargers coach internship or fellowship.
Yeah.
In college, they have it's like the Barbara. The Barbara and like the Barbara and Emil, Schoenhausen head coach,
right?
Like head coach position, or like the University of Missouri, it's the head coach is there's some endowment that pays for it, so it's like they do it at Stanford too, right? The offensive and the defensive coordinator have an endowment in front of it. It's brutal. It's a brutal thing. That's what's going on there. If you are a former Chargers head coach, and by the way,
North Turner's got to be out there, right?
I don't think North Turner works anymore.
Oh, no. He, you know where he works? You can actually guess this. So just to be clear, North Turner hasn't worked for 5 years. He was hired this past year to work for what organization, would you guess?
This past year, meaning 24 or 25?
24.
This past year, North Turner worked for the Commanders.
The Raiders.
Oh, that was my second guess.
I know. It was right there.
There it is. Magnificent. What an operation. Do you think the Niners trade up from 11?
No, but I think they might. But I think they trade up. They could trade up from 43. I could see that, and I know I'm obsessed with Trey Amos. Who, we're going to have more.
Amos.
Yeah, we're going to have some more videos on that, breaking down some positions, some draft guys. But I do think there's like an element of trade down, trade up, a little 1-2 to get some of the talent that slips. Because I do think there's like it's an interesting little cutoff there. And the second round gets weird, and there's some guys I really like. But most of it's a wasteland.
They might be struggling at 43 to get a guy that they feel like has a punch to him.
Trade down, trade up, and then a huge gap until the next pick.
Frankly, I think that if you were to optimize, we were to fully game theory this. They have picks 138 and 139 together. I think you should get all of your picks right next to each other.
Oh yeah.
So that you just have to make like one decision, and you can just make it twice. Like you never have to decide between two guys. You just take both of them. That's the only way you should draft. So trade down from 11 to like 26. and then trade up to from 43 to like 27, and then then whatever you want is right there for
And then
you.
you just get picks 135, 136, 137, 138, 139, and that's your entire draft.
Mick Lombardi, any thoughts on Mick Lombardi coming in as quarterback's coach?
I talked to him when he was hired. He worked with Jimmy in I think he was the Raiders QB's coach with Jimmy. I don't
For
offensive
all
coordinator.
game and a
Offensive
half of
coordinator,
Jimmy?
I want to say.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Seems like a smartish guy. When I talked to him, he was really congested. So that's really the only thought I had. He seems fine. Seems like a cool guy.
Okay. Well, I'm
Don't
sure that will help them win games. Cool guys.
don't have any deep insight otherwise.
You still all the way in on Drew Dahlman?
I would be.
Okay.
I would be if that's how they end up going. I'd be all for it. If you're going to spend on one free agent, I think that's the way to go. It'll be interesting what happens with Greenlaw. There's a lot of signs that might just not work out. Also, kind of don't think it's the worst thing in the world for them to get a little bit younger, a little bit healthier. I'm not criticizing Dre Greenlaw. I think he's
I
fantastic,
totally,
but
I get where
depending
you're
on the
coming
price
from.
tag,
I get that. I do get that. Right? Like you're going to have to pay a guy who you really, let's be clear about that. You can't trust him to play 14 games for you next year. Like how much is that worth? He's worth a lot to you emotionally, but you're going to overpay anything that the market would give him out of an emotional, from an emotional standpoint. You never want to be negotiating from an emotional standpoint. And they feel like they need him. The problem is they need him. Like they're going to have to get like 3 dudes to replace him because is there a clear-cut alternative that gives you what Dre Greenlaw gives you? And if so, he's probably going to be really expensive.
There's no one that plays at that same level. But we talked about guys. There's Jamie and Sherwood out there. There's a few other players who are really promising and don't have the same production. And I'm not saying anyone's at that. I'm just saying he could price himself out what they're looking to pay him. Like if it gets up to 10, are you paying that? Like for that just seems
it's all
I don't
easy
know
for us to say.
I mean, listen, I love Dre Greenlaw. I've covered him since he was a rookie. He's one of my favorite players, favorite people to talk to. Like I will not say a bad word. I just wonder if the price gets a little too steep for him and if they're better off trying to get a little younger, like Lynch said, and pick up some other pieces to try and fit in there.
So a couple of notes here. Let's start with a bit of a bit, but also a real thing. So we do have a membership to this channel. Okay, you don't have to do anything. Okay, you can just subscribe, like the video, tell the algorithm, hey, I'm in with these dudes. We'd appreciate that. I guess you can do the other thing too if you want. We do have a membership. There is a little bit of money. Okay. Now, I want to make something clear. We've switched over to OBS on this. I'm going to get the super chats to just play on the screen. I haven't had time to do it. I have a 3-week-old. And it is frankly hard, but we're getting better. And so I will get, when you put in a super chat, no matter what it says, God bless me. I'm setting myself up for failure here. Whatever the super chat is going to pop up on the screen right next to this Dieter and Hutch thing that I put together. Okay. And if it goes bad, I'm just going to go, bam, big heads.
And then we're going to have it strobe so it just gets burned into everyone's retinas.
It's going to overwhelm our faces and somehow give us sunburns through screens. So there's that to look forward to. Membership will have its perks in that regard. Membership will have its perks in the fact that we have a draft guide coming out. And we're going to try to get it to you ASAP, which doesn't mean anytime soon, but sooner rather than later.
Yeah, shooting for a few weeks before the draft. That would be the dream.
That's right.
And we will be very clear of when it's out. It is not out yet, but we are working hard on it like the deranged individuals we are.
That's absolutely correct. The third aspect of membership, this is a new perk.
You get to kiss Dieter once a year.
Right on the lips. For $5, that's a deal. Many have paid more, both with their lives and fiscally. But the third aspect is you will also be a part owner of the Scottish soccer team that we're going to buy. So My wife is from Scotland. My children are Scottish. Okay.
This is it.
The San Francisco 49ers, or rather 49ers Enterprises.
It's just Prague. It's just Prague.
It's just Prague. They bought Rangers. Not
Huge
the Texas,
team in Scotland.
Not the Texas Rangers, not the New York Rangers. Rangers FC from Glasgow. The other half of the old firm with Celtic. Now, they clearly have never spent any real time in Glasgow because that's one of the dumbest purchases in the history of mankind.
I've been there. When I studied abroad, and it was I had a rough time. They have a lovely necropolis on the top of a hill with beautiful graves. It's a working class city.
My wife went to college in Glasgow, and let's just say that it is a very stabby town. You can have a good time in Glasgow. Glasgow is also the only city in Scotland where I have been denied entry. So my wife tried to take me to like an underground punk club in Glasgow as sort of like, hey, all these things. It was something that she would get a kick out of. Well, because it's such a stabby city, there's like 4 layers of security to get into this club. So we're getting in, and I guess the guy was saying, take off your jacket. I picked up 0% of it. I had been in Scotland for 2 weeks. Again, family, my wife's family is Scottish. Like, I hear some Scottish accents. I can discern them. It's a ridiculous tone, but I can discern them. I got 0% of this. This guy is now yelling at me to take off my jacket, apparently in English. I'm just like, no, I got no idea. Nothing. Don't understand. To the point where my wife's like, we got to go. We got to get out of here. They're going to kill you in this thing because they think you got some knife or a gun under your jacket. That's Glasgow. Glasgow is you got to watch over your shoulder every step. Like, that is it. And by the way, you're not allowed to wear green or blue the days that those two teams are playing because you will just straight up, and I mean this literally, this is not hyperbole, you will straight up get stabbed.
Yeah. I went to, so when I told in high school, I had a European history professor, and I told him, messaged him, I was like, hey, I'm going to Glasgow. Do you have any recommendations? He goes, why? He said, why? He's from Glasgow. Like, he grew up there. He's like, why are you going there?
Yeah.
And again, I'm not ripping on Scotland. No. I've have great time in Scotland, but Glasgow is a working class, tough city.
It is not a place to be trifled with, and it's not something to go into without a plan. And so they bought Rangers. So we do not have buy Rangers level money. I missed my opportunity to buy Hibs, the team in Edinburgh, because I did not have $6 million and still don't. But, at least there was an opportunity at one point to have bought it for $6 million. That is no longer the case because you have teams like 49ers Enterprises coming in. So what we're going to do is we are going to take pretty much all of the proceeds of this show and we are going to invest strictly in a bit in a Scottish soccer team. We have many options available to us.
FC is a strong contender.
That's right. Forest Mechanics in the 5th division is another good option up the cans. Because I go over there, I feel like we'll be in a good situation to actually run the team as part of a collective. All of these things, like when I say we're going to buy a Scottish soccer team, I truly mean it. And you can be part of this investment. No, well, if we get the money, we can do this. And
what a good cause.
And I'm going to put a little banner on the bottom for the next show where we're at with our quest to buy.
We just make a Ryan Reynolds annoying style documentary about how cool.
We're going to have to. I mean, there's really, it's cinema, frankly, what we're doing. But the goal is we're going to buy a Scottish soccer team, and they're going to play Rangers in the cup, and we're going to lose big. But we're going to force the 49ers to respect us as equals for a day. That's what we're going to do. The Dieter and Hutch podcast is going into the same arena. That's where we're at.
About 4 tiers below, but we'll climb.
4 tiers below, but we're coming up. We're going to buy a Scottish soccer team, and that's what we're going to do. I'm excited.
What a good cause.
I'm excited.
I am too.
Up the cans. Though you have found some doozies for us, and now we got to, 1, make the money, and 2, find a way to actually buy them and take care on the day-to-day. Here's what we actually have outside of bits for the channel. We got our early, middle, lates, which is something we did last year, got some good feedback on, feels like a good model for moving forward. We've already done what we already put out
We
there.
did. I think it was we did edge rushers. We've
That's
got
right.
offensive tackles coming up. I think probably the end of this week.
Yep.
And then we've got corners and we've got defensive tackles.
So we're going to do early, middle, and late on all of those 3 guys to look for: early round, middle round, late round picks, guys who get our stamp of approval. Those videos are going to be coming up. We're really looking forward to those. And we're going to do one on every position by the time the draft comes around. Jake and I will be back talking about free agency for some live shows. Looking forward to that as well. And then, we'll have some combine reactions. We'll have some data that we can parse into, kind of the big things that we've noted. Once we start getting some numbers coming our way, we've been all tape up to this point, baby. We're going to get some real numbers coming our way, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I'm excited. There's a lot of guys that I'm curious about how they're going to test. We might be a little delayed on the combine reactions, but blame me for it. But we'll
I want to make sure that we're able to ingest. We're just large language models here. We want to be able to ingest all the data. And listen, there's going to be a lot of movement here. We got the Rams figuring out what they want to do at quarterback. Best suggestion I've heard so far: trade him to Detroit for Jared Goff straight up.
They should. They both should.
It's a great. You want to talk about a bit? That is 10 times better than we're going to buy a Scottish soccer team.
I love it.
And then. There's going to be a lot of movement. Deebo Samuel's going to be out. They're going to have to maybe sign Brock Purdy, maybe not. There's going to be a lot of really good stuff here in the coming weeks. This is our wheelhouse. Thank you guys for coming along for the ride, and excited to take this thing to another level here in the coming days and weeks. So appreciate y'all.
Peace.